In this video, we're going to take a look at how to assemble the puzzle cube and the steps you're going to take in order to put your puzzle cube together in Fusion 360. So here in the data panel, you'll see I've modeled 4 parts that are going to make up my puzzle cube. Again, as a disclaimer, this is not going to follow the constraints of the puzzle cube project. So this is solely for instructional purposes. So here I've got each one of the individual parts, each within its own design file. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close out of all of the part files up here in the main window until I'm stuck with a untitled design file, but I can see the 4 parts that are there in the data panel. I'm going to go ahead, before I get started on this untitled design file, I'm going to hit the save button, and this is something you have to do before you can start these next steps. And I'm going to call this the puzzle cube assembly. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So the puzzle cube assembly file, you'll notice, will be saved here. And I'm going to keep the data panel open, and I'm going to start with my first part. The first part I'm going to work with is the green part. So I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to say insert into current design by right clicking on it and choosing that. Now right now it's going to automatically set that at the origin, and it's going to be ready. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Before I do anything else, I'm going to hit the little drop down arrow, and I'm going to choose on the green part. I want to right click and I want to choose ground. And I want to make sure that when I drag this part, that I want to make sure that it does not move on me. I should not be able to drag it around on the screen. So if I have it ungrounded, this is going to be what happens. I do not want this to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit undo to place it right back where it should be. And you have to make sure you hit the ground from the expanded part there, because if I try to ground this one, you'll notice it does not take. So I need to go ahead and undo. I'm going to hit unground on this one, which is looks like the sub-assembly. I'm going to choose the green part and choose ground. Now when I click and drag, nothing happens. So now I'm going to go ahead and collapse this menu for the green part. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click on each one of these parts, or I can hold Control, select, or a Command if you're on the Mac, and you can choose all 3 parts. Right click, and you can see that you can either open them, move, copy, but actually what we want is we want to bring them into the design. So I'm actually going to hold down my left mouse button. I'm going to drag the blue part in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move this over, and actually in my design, my part here, I'm going to go ahead and get it in position. So it's going to be over here on this side of the puzzle cube, and it's going to be facing in this direction. So I can actually turn these in the direction or in the position that I want them in. So there's the blue one, and I can right click and say, if I don't have all of them selected, insert into current design, or I can hold down my mouse button and drag over into the graphics window, and that'll also work as well. Okay. This one, very similar. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and position this to be, there we go, in the position that it needs to be in order to be assembled. And I'm going to I always like to go through and have it where I can kind of see the faces. And I'm going to drag the yellow part in there and go ahead and get it placed. Alright, once I have them in there, I can go ahead and hit close the data panel. So here are the 4 parts that make up the puzzle cube. For this example, and in order to start assembling, green is not able to be moved, but now if I click and drag, red is able to be moved, yellow is, and we do not want to ground these other parts. Only the first part do we want to make sure that it is grounded. And I'm going to go ahead and up here and I'm going to choose under the assemble panel, I want to choose joint. And within joint, I'm going to say capture the position. And I want to capture the position of all the parts. So the first thing I want to do is I want to look at what parts do I want to assemble to the green one. So like here, my blue one, if I hover over the face, this face is going to go up against this side of the puzzle cube part that I need. So actually I'm going to notice that here I've got some different points along here on the faces, which are known as joint origins. And these joint origins are going to be points that I'm going to find that are matching. So actually I'm going to and if I need to, I can hold the command key down or control, and that'll lock me in on that face, and I'm going to choose one of these points to where they're going to go through and be located. So one of the easiest ones to pick is probably this one up here in the corner. So you can see the little joint origin chip, that little circle with looks kind of like a smile, almost like an open mouth face kind of thing like here. That's called the joint origin chip. And I'm going to place that, and in here, if you hover over any of the faces, you're going to notice you get these other points to line up. Using a view cube, I'm going to go ahead and turn around here, and I'm going to pick this corner. So let me hold control. I'm going to pick that corner to where it's going to match. And here, when I click on the home button, you can choose what kind of, from this little menu here, what kind of joint that you want. We want rigid, and we're going to use rigid for all of these. But if I choose revolute, revolute's a spinning joint. A slider joint would go through and have it go sliding. And you can see some of these are a ball joint, would go through and have it kind of roll around like this. But we want to choose rigid. And it's going to kind of shake a little bit there to show that that's rigid. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say OK once I have that joint in here. So you're going to see a little icon that pops up here, which is the rigid joint. It also shows up down here in your model history tree. If you also take a look, you've also got joints folder now. Rigid 1 is the very first joint that you applied in this file. And I'm going to continue to look at the parts. So let me look at my yellow part here. The yellow part is probably going to sit down into my, next to the green part here. Use this bottom corner there, and we'll see where, if it's going to hit right in the right spot that I need it to. Should sit right there, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And I can go ahead and say OK. If it doesn't, I can always select the joint either from here or from the listing or down here in the model history tree, right click and say delete, and then the joint goes away and I'm able to get back the movement that I need here. So again, if you happen to need to change that, I'm going to reapply the joint to the right location. Part moves to the location, I say OK, and I'm able to go through and continue to assemble. So now, joint, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose this underneath face here. There's this corner, and where is it going to hit at? It's probably going to hit at right in this corner, and that goes through, and I say OK. So 3 joints have been applied. If I click and drag on any of the parts, none of them move. So if they went through and moved on us, then that means we would need to go through and reapply a joint or change them in order to make sure that that would happen. Okay, so this is finishing up the assembly for the Puzzle Cube project and the method that goes along for you to be able to assemble your Puzzle Cube.